is. There's the Chronic Dimension Theater.
Hello and welcome back to the Chronic Dimension Theater. Today I got another Quick Toke episode that is a mini episode. Going solo once again, no host, just me. And today we are going to be doing another highlight of Halloween nostalgia. I thought that since hopefully I'm releasing this on Friday the 13th in October, we could talk about Friday the 13th. Now, you might be thinking that I should have done this for the reboot retrospective series that I'm doing. However, I meant to do that originally, but I started rewatching the original Friday the 13th, and then I rewatched the remake, and I realized, I came to a conclusion, those two are fucking different movies, okay? The remake that came out in 2009 of Friday the 13th is actually much more of like a remake of Friday the 13th Part 2. And we'll go into why here in a second. But yeah, so I'll cover that in another episode, possibly with a guest host. But today we are talking about the original Friday the 13th, which was released in 1980. Straight up 80. Not even the 80s, just the 80. Pretty crazy. The official plot synopsis from IMDb is as follows. A group of camp counselors trying to reopen a summer camp with a grim past are being stalked by a mysterious killer. Ooh, very fun. Yeah, let's get into it. So this movie was directed by Sean S. Cunningham, who was known for producing Last House on the Left, which was Wes Craven's directorial debut. It's a very terrifying movie. It's very gory. It's very intense. It is one of the first of its kind, I want to say, where it really, really lent into crazy gore, horror, torture. Like, it's crazy. So whenever this movie, Friday the 13th, was announced to be, tied to Cunningham, it kind of had some high expectations for sure. He had some high scares, high spookiness to live up to. The movie was written by Victor Miller. This is the only movie in the franchise that Victor Miller wrote. We'll go into why later on. The budget for this movie was $550,000, and due to Halloween, the original, the success in the box office of that film, this film actually shares distribution rights with Paramount and Warner Brothers for box office. Now, that's because they saw just how much money that movie made and how popular it was, so everybody wanted a little piece, so they decided to share. The budget was $550,000. The box office return worldwide was $59.8 million. Good God. It technically is an independent film, and Jesus, that is such a huge return for an independent film, especially at the time. Kudos to them, and upon rewatch, I can see why. God damn, I would have went to go see this movie hundreds of times, for sure. Now, it's interesting to note that while Cunningham continued to stay involved in the franchise, he was involved in Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X, which is my personal favorite in the franchise, Freddy vs. Jason. He was also involved in the 2009 reboot, and he was also involved in the 2015 video game, which, fuck, I've only played that a couple times, but now I really want to play it some more after watching this first film. Do they even have Pamela Voorhees in the game? I hope they do, because that's who I would want to play as. Fuck Jason. Fuck that. Boo. Now, I did mention earlier that Victor Miller was only involved in this first film. He really only wrote this first film, and that's because by the end of this film, we see that the entire focus of the franchise just completely shifts to Jason as the main antagonist, and Miller's opinion was not too great on this choice. He thought it was straight dookie, no good, poo-poo. He really didn't like this at all, and I'll kind of go into that a little more later as well. Majority of the filming for this movie was actually done in New Jersey, with most of the camp scenes actually filmed on location at a camp called, oh fuck, I might fuck this up, Nobibosco, that's located outside of Hardwick, New Jersey. So that's very cool. One thing that I will say about this movie when I was rewatching it is it looked incredibly authentic. Like, there was no mistake. These kids are in the woods, they're at a camp, and it's great that they were actually able to film on location at an actual summer camp, rather than building up a set, because, you know, there are these little nuances, these little tiny little details at real summer camps that I'm sure maybe they would have possibly overlooked, you know, when building the set. So it's cool that they were able to do this. It adds to the authenticity, especially all those little wears and tears, really shines. Now, this film stars Betsy Palmer as the iconic Pamela Voorhees, the deranged and vengeful mother. She's a crazy mama. She loves her baby boy. She plays very well. Now, I have a little excerpt from Wikipedia about possibly why she actually decided to take this role. Now, I obviously cannot confirm or deny anything. I've actually also heard this story in a couple of documentaries and interviews that I watched leading up to this podcast, so there's probably some truth to it, but I just think it's kind of funny and I thought I'd add it in. So, you know, I'm paraphrasing here, but basically, Betsy she got a Mercedes-Benz, and it started to fuck up on her. You know, it was giving her a lot of trouble. So her daughter decided to recommend a very lavished new Volkswagen. Oh God, I'm gonna fuck this up. It's a Volkswagen Sirocco. I hope I pronounced that right. I don't know shit about cars. But this was a very nice car at the time. I did look up a picture of it. I dig the style of it for sure. It retailed at about 10 racks was how much this car costs. So, she just so happened to get an offer for a little horror movie out in the woods, out at a little Boy Scout camp, that was basically offering her $1,000 per day for 10 days of shooting. Fucking perfect. She needed 10 grand. Here's a quick little gig, 10 days, 10 grand. Dude, I'd love to fucking make 10 grand in 10 days. What the fuck? And doing this? Dude. And you pay off a fucking Volkswagen? Come on. She got it made here. She made the right choices, for sure. Not to say that she doesn't love the franchise now, and she isn't very respectful, and you know, she owes a lot to the role, for sure. Not that she wasn't already well established, but, you know, as you can see by this, or hear by this little quick tale, she didn't really jump into this film for, you know, the plot or anything like that. She was just trying to make some cash. So she's actually been quoted as saying, like, this movie is a piece of shit that nobody is ever gonna see. And she really just, you know, like I said, she was just trying to get her paycheck. But she still, you know, respect to her, because she still put in her all and gave an amazing performance. She even cameoed in the sequel. You know, even though she thought that this wasn't really going to go anywhere, the sequel did come out a year later, and she was able to cameo in it. She also almost returned for Freddy vs. Jason, but she was actually lowballed money-wise. So she didn't return, and they actually recast her for Freddy vs. Jason. Very sad. That would have been very cool. Now, opposite Miss Voorhees is Alice Hardy. She is played by Adrienne King. Adrienne King also returned for the sequel, just for a quick, like, 5 to 10 minute introduction scene. Unfortunately, however, Miss King did make the decision to leave acting, which is very tough for her after she acquired a fucking stalker, man. You sick fucks. She got a stalker, which, you know, shook up her whole life, so she stopped acting for a while. But she did return back in 2010 for a little short, like, not a short, I'm sorry, like a little independent horror film. And since then, she has been doing quite a few things. So, fuck yeah, you can't keep her down. Fuck that sick bastard, whoever the hell that was. Didn't look into that too much, but yeah. Another iconic part of this entire movie is the musical score. Now, the iconic music score was produced by Harry Manfredini. with the intention of serving as the audience's cue that the killer was present, as Mrs. Voorhees isn't shown until the last 15-ish minutes. It was stated that Harry actually got inspiration from Jaws. You know, the shark in Jaws wasn't really shown all that much, but that little dun 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 dun, that theme always let you knew that the shark was nearby. So they wanted to do something a little similar here. Now, to oppose that choice, certain scares and certain scenes were completely void of music, so that the scares were less anticipated by the audience. You know, it's just nice and calm and quiet, and then all of a fucking sudden, you got a machete in your face. And that's how it works for sure. Now, what I like to call the 13th score, which is just, you know, the Voorhees theme song, we'll call it. That was created by use of echo deployed by recorded syllables by Manfredini. The syllables were actually ki, ma, which really blew the fucking mind fucked me, okay? Because I had no clue. Everybody goes ch, 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 ha, 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 right? Like a ch sound and then a ha sound, but that's not what it is. And even Harry himself is like, I don't know why the fuck people do that, because it's clearly not that. So let me break it down for you. So, like I said, the syllables recorded and echoed to create this theme song is ki, ma, which is actually a constant voice that is playing within Pamela Voorhees' head, which is Jason, her son, repeating the phrase, kill her, mommy, which is something that she actually repeats during a crazy outburst at the end of the film when she's chasing Alice around trying to kill her. She's mimicking her son Jason, if you will, and she's saying, kill her, mommy, so that ki comes from kill her, and then that ma comes from mommy. So she's constantly hearing Jason ordering her to take her revenge on his poor unfortunate death, which I think is fucking insane. However, now that I know that doesn't really make sense for Jason to have the same theme. If it's kill her mommy, why maybe they should have changed it for maybe it should have been ki ja. But that sounds like a Hispanic laughing, so boo. Now, onto the story. Now, Miller's story, Victor Miller, this was one of a motherly love that was so deep that when mixed with revenge and grief becomes murderous. And Jason was always meant to serve as the tragic victim, the catalyst for the psychotic outburst. Nothing more, really. Nothing fucking more. Now, Betsy Palmer herself is, like I said, she was a well-respected actress. She was already prominent in the Hollywood scene for sure. So she employed a lot of methods, basically just grabbing little bits and pieces of the script, you know, little items that she already knew, and she tied in this whole backstory that she created to further drive her character's motive. She basically started with a little class ring that was in the script that is shown. And it's crazy because when I rewatched the film, that class ring, like, you really only see it a couple times. It's during those POV shots when the killer, you know, before you know who it is peeking around the trees and the bushes. You see her hand, or their hand, move bushes and leaves around, and you see that class ring. And it's crazy because, like, that has fucking nothing to do with the plot or the movie at all, but she wove that into, you know, her background. It started with that class ring, and that took her back into when she was in school, back in the 40s and the 50s. Basically, that was a time when you weren't really supposed to, have sex at all out of wedlock. So in her mind, Mrs. Voorhees was a young mother that, became pregnant out of wedlock and was abandoned by both the father of the child and her family as well. And while attempting to raise her son alone, she decides to pick up a job and work at a summer camp as the chef, which is something that is mentioned in the film when she's explaining who she is at the end. This is where she is able to take her son to camp as well while she is working. However, her son is neglected due to the camp counselors having sex, and he is unfortunately he dies. He drowns in the lake. Now, this unfortunately would cause the character to snap psychologically and fixate on Puritan ideals, as the vulgarity can be traced back to the original sin. Basically, this all can be traced back in her mind to the mistake of having sex out of wedlock, the mistake of giving in to the lust that she did as a teenager, which made her lose her family, possibly her lover. Now she had to go through raising this child on her own, and now she loses her child, the only thing that she has left. And that is also due to, again, giving into the lust of being a teenager and being horny as fuck. So she snaps and she's like, well, no, ain't no more fucking round here, and starts killing people. And that's basically the backstory motive that Betsy gave Pamela Voorhees. I did mention earlier that Victor Miller really didn't want Jason to be anything more than, like, he was just meant to tug on your heartstrings, man. He was meant to make you understand that, like, they didn't want to just make a crazy, psychotic woman killing for no reason. They wanted to terrify you by showing you just a regular old mother, just a mommy who loves her baby boy, and that love just it drove her insane, because it would, it would. If that happened to you, if you are a parent and your kid was killed and you knew, or died and you knew that something could have, stopped it, you would lose your shit. You'd fucking fixate on that. Keeping that in mind, it's actually interesting to know that last scare where Jason's undead, I guess you can say, corpse from the lake pulls in Alice for one last scare, that actually was never intended for the film whatsoever. It was not in the final screenplay at all. It was actually added into the film by the famed effects chief Tom Savini. Now, Tom Savini's goal was to just grab one last scare from the audience. Originally, the ending for the film just had Alice dozing off on the boat and just wandering away on the lake, surviving. However, Tom Savini was inspired by another horror film that he witnessed at the time and wanted to add in one last jump scare to get the audiences when they were least expecting it. Excuse me. Now, while most people would imagine that Jason's addition was actually due to the success of The Shape, the character Michael Myers, you would be right to assume that, but you would be wrong in the fact that that's actually not the inspiration. The actual inspiration for this final jump scare was the cliffhanger ending in Carrie, which Tom Savini had just recently seen, and he was completely inspired not only to add in the scene with Jason coming back, I guess you could say, but also completely redesigning the character, as originally he was just like a regular old little boy who drowned, but they decided to give him more grotesque features originally just so that he looked more menacing during that final scare, but then they decided to also weave that into the plot somehow, which really, they didn't too much, but they kind of told Betsy behind the scenes, like, hey, just to let you know, your son's kind of deformed also. Not only are you a single mother and whatever, and you just lost your kid, but he was also kind of deformed. Why? Just cause I think it looks cool. It does look cool, but originally there's no real purpose that serves to the plot whatsoever. Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. It's, I think a lot of people, myself included, often forget that Friday the 13th really just originated with Pamela Voorhees. It really had nothing to do with Jason. However, after the success of the first film, the franchise completely pivoted in a new direction. Everybody wanted their superstar antagonist slasher character, especially around the 80s. So they decided to go for a masked hockey man named Jason. What do you think? Do you think the franchise served better, in your opinion, when it decided to pivot to the Jason character, or do you think they could have applied the same logic and scares to Pamela? I mean, Jason got killed over and over and over, but he just started coming back to life, even more disfigured and more disformed. So why couldn't the same have happened with Pamela Voorhees? She could have been resurrected more sinisterly, more menacing, more grotesque. She could have donned a mask. That would have been cool. I think it could have been the potato sack. Fuck the hockey mask. We could have stuck with the potato sack that we see in part 2, and we could have had that nice little warm blue sweater. That would have been scary as fuck. Because honestly, old white ladies scare me more than fucking hockey players. One last thing I really want to talk about is, like, why did you even add that? I mean, I understand that Tom Savini, when you have Tom Savini on your horror movie, and he's like, yo, can I please make this horror prosthetic? Like, you're not gonna say no. And if he's like, come on, let's just add one more scene, because this is a master with effects. Like, fuck yeah. I understand the need to want to get one more scare out of the audience, but the original scare, the fucking ending where Pamela Voorhees gets decapitated, capped, that is crazy enough in my opinion. Not only did it make me jump upon rewatch, like I was like, whoa, that shit was so good. It looked incredible, and Tom Savini did incredible work in that scene as well. Not only does Pamela Voorhees' head get completely lopped off, but the camera holds on to the neck. It holds on that frame where you just see the neck and the shoulders shaking and blood spurting out, but not too much. It's not too over the top. But what actually made it for me was, I don't know if it's still Betsy Palmer's hands, but like, you see Pamela Voorhees' hands shaking and her fingers are moving and like her body's reacting to the pain somehow, and that it holds on that for like a good minute, and I'm like, whoa, that is incredible. The effects are great, even if it's not like the most realistic. It's the use of the camera work. They do some slow-mo for that as well. The music score that's playing in the background, and the length of time that they hold on that frame, it sells so well. And I was like, dude, like I said, I completely understand why you would want to get one more scare out of the audience, you stingy bitch. But that was enough. Like, that could have been it. And then, like I said, we could have seen this franchise pivot. I mean, not pivot whatsoever. It just could have went all a completely different direction from what we saw. We could have just seen Pamela Voorhees come back, because damn, that was so good. Oof, that is all I have for the original Friday the 13th from 1980. Thank you for listening to another highlight of Halloween nostalgia. Happy Friday the 13th. Happy spooky season. Happy October. Happy Halloween. It's coming soon. I hope you get your costume, because if you don't, you're gonna be sorry, just like me. I completely plan on doing a reboot retrospective on the franchise, but I think it would serve better if I did Friday the 13th sequel and then compared that to the Friday the 13th remake, because those films are basically kind of the same. You know, that's more of a remake of the sequel to this film than it is a remake of this film. If anything, that one kind of continues the story to this film, you could say. Does that make Friday the 13th the first Legacy sequel? Nope. No, it's H2O. Sorry. Well, thank you for listening. I'll catch you guys next week, and peace out.